Not sure how I got stuck following Mike Leach. What did we talk about? The Holy Lands, Machu Picchu, marriage. This might be a tougher interview up here. But we're excited to be here. We're excited to almost get this thing kicked off. I'm really proud to introduce the guys that we brought up here to represent our program. We talk about OKGs, our kind of guys in our program. These guys are exactly that. They are big-time players that are great teammates and awesome people. And both are Southern California guys. Our center, who's been a four-year starter for us. J. Sarah High School, Nick Harris, awesome guy to be around. And likewise, another four-year starter, has been in the mix for 4 years as a walk-on. He's truly a remarkable person and player. Loyola High School down here, Myles Bryant. And I know some of you guys know him, and if you don't, get to know them because they're awesome. That being said, fire away.
How different just has this offseason been without Jake being there and being around the team, and just the overall premise of you're now kind of moving into a new era, your own era at Washington?
Yeah. As weird as it sounds, it hasn't felt that different because maybe we haven't played games and those type of things, but you're so focused on just trying to develop guys in spring football, and then the summertime's all about the weight room, that the process has felt so much like it has in the past. But if anything, it's a little bit of it's always bittersweet when you lose those guys, but it's also an exciting time because you can feel the competition at so many different positions.
What's your pride down Nick and Myles? Either one of those guys were highly recruited guys, highly touted guys.
Can I turn these mics around so everybody can hear that?
And they're from down here.
Yeah.
Did that have to play in you choosing to bring them down here?
I thought it was interesting because when we chose to bring these two guys down, it was just like, hey, who deserves to come down here? Who's played a lot of football for us? Who does everything right? It was like these two guys jumped out. Then you kind of look back and you're like, hey, this is their backyard. And then you talked about the recruiting process where, that's where I struggle with so much of this stuff in terms of the labels that we put on guys coming out of high school, whether they're this many stars or lack of. I always say this, and I say this with pride. Nick Harris was recruited by us and one other, FCS school and ended up starting as a freshman. Myles walked on for us, and these are some of the best players in our league. And, it's just so hard to know, and that's why I'm proud to have these guys down here because they've done it the right way. They've kind of come from nowhere, so to speak, and it's been such an awesome process for me to watch and our coaches to watch. Because nobody knows what these kids have gone through and the commitment that they've truly made to get themselves in this position.
Do you remember Myles Bryant's recruitment when he got the offer from you guys, and then did he slow play it or just did not work out? And then that conversation on signing day when you said Lake offered him a chance to walk on.
Yeah, so he was one of the guys that we felt really good about, that we felt like he fit our profile, and I think at that time we had another couple guys that were the same, and sometimes recruiting goes very quickly and other times it drags out, and I think at that time it went kind of quickly, and we kind of told Myles, hey, this thing might go quick, and it did. And again, to his credit, it's just amazing. He had other opportunities to go and get his education paid for, and he just felt like he fit us and believed in himself to go, doesn't matter, I'm going to come there and earn a scholarship. And I'm thinking, hey, you sure? Because I don't know how this is going to turn out, and I don't know when that could be, if at all. and just, how he was from the start and the level that he played at, the attention to detail. It was amazing, and he earned it faster than most.
Curious with all the transfer portal talk and the crazy offseason around the country, how did your playing career influence how you handle some of those conversations now with today's players?
Yeah. I'm old school. I really am. And what I mean by that is I just believe that, there's a lot of hard things that we need to kind of work through to get good things at the end of that process. And I think sometimes, the portal's good, for kids to go in there if they want to, but, I think how this thing was heading where guys could just transfer and it's starting to get free agency, I don't think that's good. First and foremost, I don't think it's good for the kids. Everybody wants to talk about that. I've just seen too many guys, including myself, have to work through hard things where maybe you tap out and where it's just easier. I'm going to go somewhere else where I think it's better, and it's usually not. And I just really believe that, and so that's just kind of my feeling on that.
Do you remember when you were leaving and going to UC Davis? Obviously, it's different going from JUCO to the next level, but what was that recruitment like? I mean, without a portal, without Twitter,
and I will tell you this: when I played at the JC, that was a really, really hard experience on me for what you guys are talking about. The competition was there. That I think I'm getting overlooked. I think the coaches aren't paying attention. Like, I've been through all that stuff, but never once did I think about leaving there. That wasn't even like an option. It's like, I'm just going to grind this out and figure this out. And it was one of the harder things that I'd been through in my life, and I think it was one of the things that was actually most beneficial as well to help me when I actually went to Davis.
How Davis find you? How's that?
Well, I almost went there out of high school. I did, but I wanted everybody, thought I was a defensive player, and I wanted to be a quarterback, and so that's why I went to a JC to see if I could do that. And so the second time around, it was pretty easy, although I think they thought I was still going to go there and play defense, but it just so happened that it worked out at the quarterback position.
Chris, now that a year has passed, can you just kind of judge how Jonathan did in his first year at Oregon State, and what kind of impressed you about him, leaving your staff and starting his own program? And
Yeah, that's hard for me to answer because I don't know. I just know this: it's hard being new at any program. Yep. And sometimes the stage is set for you better to have success at certain places than others. Where when I went to Washington, the stage was set for me probably better than it was, for him there, and I just know it's hard. It's hard the first couple of years, no matter if it's even going. It's a fight to get your way of doing things going. And so I know he's in the process of doing that, and they're building, and he's done. I know he's an offensive guy by nature, and their offenses, did a really nice job out of the gate, and you can see him building on defense. So, I think he's on the right track.
But the quarterback situation is going to be beat to death, written about.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think I'm excited about that. I know there's a lot of people ready to anoint certain guys at the quarterback position or at other positions, and we're really not. This is going to be a really nice, awesome competition to go on in fall camp and see how this thing shakes down. I'm so excited to get out there to watch this. I am, because I know those kids, all of them, have put in tremendous work since spring ball. And that was our mission is, we told them, we need you to get in the best shape of your life, our entire team, quarterbacks as well, and you need to get smarter in terms of smarter as a football player in our offense and defense. And I know guys have been around that office grinding and doing that, so I'm really excited to see where they are when we get back.
We talked about Jacob.
Yep.
But can you talk a little bit about Olsen Yankoff and Sermon actually putting their name in the transfer portal and Sermon coming back and really fits in that?
I think that, you got young guys that, when you got competition in the group, and I get the quarterback position is harder than most because there's one of them, an offensive lineman. Hey, if I'm a guard or set, there's 5 positions that you can move guys around, so it does get a little sticky. But, I think when you got young guys, you'd like them to hang in there and battle and grind things out. That's one of the principles that we always talk about. Good things in your life are going to be things that you really have to fight for, go through hard things. It takes time to build true elite skill. And I think you want guys to hang in there and make sure that they give themselves an opportunity to do that before they, think their time is up.
Would you take 2 quarterbacks in the same recruiting class again?
I've done that before. You know what you're getting when you do that. You do. Technically, Jake Browning and KJ Carter-Samuels were, in that same thing. They were both freshmen, redshirt. So we've been there before. We've done it at Boise, and it's not probably ideal. I think you'd like to have 1 quarterback in every class if you're in an ideal situation, but then you're going to have holes because guys are going to either not be good enough, leave, whatever. So it's always a fluid process, and you just got to keep massaging and try to get it. Once you think you got it right, it's going to change quickly anyways, and it's the nature we live in.
Do you have a timeline in mind for when you want to name a starter, both to the team, to the offense, or publicly?
Nope. None of that matters to me, even kind of. It's like when we feel like we got the guy, we'll name the guy, and we'll give him the first shot to go in there and play and see what that looks like.
In your mind, when is that competition over? Like, what do you need to see to think, okay, we have our starter?
The last time, I remember with Jake, we were going to see how he played, the first game, what'd that look like? What'd the second game look like? By about the 4th game, you're going, okay, this guy's improving, and he's getting there, because KJ was right there with him. I remember back in Boise, we had Kellen Moore. We had senior quarterbacks, and Kellen Moore was a freshman. It's like, well, let's give him a shot. And it wasn't until, the 4th game we played, I think we were playing Oregon, and he played well, that we're like, yeah, I guess we got a quarterback. So because we name a guy, it's always competition. It's always like, now you don't want a guy looking over his shoulder and all those type of things, but, that's the reality of it is a guy's going to get a shot, and we'll see what he's got. We can move the team, and it looks like we're progressing, and he's getting better. Then you go with him. If not, you give another guy a shot. That's how we do it at all positions, and it's a fine line, like I say, of not making a guy second, feeling like he makes a mistake, he's going to get yanked. So we won't do that to him.
With Nick, what makes him ideal to play center in your guys' offensive line? Obviously, he played guard his first 2 years, but...
Yeah, and so we recruited him in as a center from the start. It was just kind of weird how it happened that we didn't have him there because I think Coleman, who we thought was Coleman Shelton was probably more of a guard, but we had him and he was playing a high level. So, and I remember like it was yesterday when Nick's a freshman and all of a sudden we're in about our 2nd or 3rd week of fall camp, and Chris Strasser, who was a line coach then, didn't say a word, and we got the ones out there. And I didn't even notice it at practice and go back and put the tape on a practice tape and go back. And I went right in Strauss's office, and he just smiled, and I said, I see exactly what you're seeing, and I see why you're doing this. Like he just, you talk to him, and he just got this air and this confidence about him in such a good, positive way, and he's super athletic. And I always think those are really, really good combinations for really any position.
You've had 3 or only one position with more than 3 position coaches as wide receiver. What's been the struggle at receiver that you just haven't been able to, or how I guess would you evaluate the position?
Yeah, I think it hasn't been any one thing, but for whatever reason, that hasn't had the consistency that we'd like. Certainly with how we've had so much consistency over the years with our coaches, and I don't know. It's been, unfortunate for those kids in that room that we haven't had that. That one coach stay in there for a while. But the good news is, you can learn something from every coach, and change is part of life. And sometimes it works great, and sometimes it doesn't. And, we're trying to train our kids from the start. It doesn't matter. We're not going to make excuses. It is what it is. You can learn a lot from this next guy, and let's go. With all that being said, I feel awesome about Junior Adams. I think he's an awesome fit in there. I've loved him being part of our staff in terms of how he's fit with that, but I think he fits really good with the kids.
Was he an option for you when you decided not to retain Brent Pease after the 2015 season? Did he ever come up in your head, or was that not really a...
Well, I've known Junior for quite a long time, but we've never been on the staff together. He was a guy that was on the radar, but he had a situation where he was going to be the OC as opposed to the receiver coach. So it was a situation that he had to run with, and do that. So I think it's made him a better coach and all those type of things. So just, everything in this business when you get guys has to do with timing, and the timing just wasn't right at that time.
How important is it to have Junior is your first receivers coach that is also a former receiver? Bush was a former quarterback. I think Brent Pease was as well. Does that play any actual role? Because you're smiling a little bit.
I have a hard time with that because I'm an old receiver coach that didn't play receiver, and so it's hard for me to say that, you need a guy to play that position. But I certainly think it helps. And, the interaction I've seen with him and the kids and all that, and they all know he played receiver back in the day, so it certainly doesn't hurt.
Is there a transition with having Lubick be co-OC and now Adams just being the wide receivers coach and getting rid of that co-OC tag? Is that part of last?
I think it's all semantics. Yeah. It really is. It's the same role. He's going to help Bush game plan, and they're in it together, and it is what it is.
Chris, you've had recruiting success in this area. I feel like a lot of more of the high-profile prospects are going out of state now. Why do you feel like that is from?
Well, I think the world has gotten smaller in general, but certainly in the recruiting world. It's not just here, it's everywhere. I mean, you got, kids all over the West going different places with, the social media and the access to, it just feels smaller. And I think it's probably not just the West. I think there's probably kids from the East coming West and all over the place. But this is a hotbed of college football, or a hotbed of high school football that all the colleges are going to come here. It's just a lot of good players out of this.
Do you feel like the struggles in local schools opening up for everybody else?
I don't. I think that the two local schools are still going to get really good players out of here because I think there's that many good players down here. So I think they'll get. Their fair share of good players. But it'll be interesting to see how this thing all plays out in the long run because, it's one thing to go somewhere and really. Just depending on the kid, it can be great to get out of their comfort zone and go to a different part of the country and they love it. But I think, we'll see how it all plays out when it's all said and done, this new recruiting era where kids are going everywhere. I think there's no place like home sometimes as well.
What's been a common trait for the guys you've landed from here?
Well, I think the Pac-12's footprint is all up and down the coast here, from Washington all the way down to California, and then, a little bit east. I mean, that's the footprint we play in, so that's where most of the players are going to come from. And, our coaches do a good job of really trying to find the guys that fit our culture, our schemes, and we love, just staying in the West here. That's our footprint. We are in the West, a little bit in Texas, because we know those coaches and we know the leagues, and we have a good feel like we know what we're getting, as opposed to going, somewhere where we're just not familiar with. That takes a lot of time to catch up to speed, where my entire life, being with old Coach Aliotti, we've all been out here. I mean, I know all these high schools and a lot of these coaches for a long time, and that makes it, an easier recruiting process.
How much does that kind of phenomenon help drive some of the parity in the Pac-12 for the last couple of years and level the playing field between a lot of the programs?
Does what drive the parity?
The fact that, especially in Southern California, the recruiting's become a little more stratified. You have players going to more places now. How much does that kind of correlate with what it seems like the Pac-12? There's more parity between the programs now.
Yeah, it could, with some of these guys, going different places. I still think there's just enough good players here for us to, win at a high level. I really do. And, more players you have in your backyard, better chance you have of getting them. That's why it's always going to be a good thing for the two Southern California schools. And us at Washington, hopefully we get a good majority of the good players in Washington to stay home, but they're not going to all stay. Some kids are just looking for something different.
Chris, you opened last season with Auburn and certainly more than held your own there. A lot of people consider their returning defensive line to be the best in the sport. From your recollection, what made Brown and Davidson and Co. and 5'3" and 91 in particular just so good?
Yep. Well, I think one thing, they were all good players together, so it wasn't any one guy you were really worried about. You had to block them all, and it's hard to keep all four of those guys blocked at one time. But they're athletic and physical players, and play hard. They're well coached. That's a well coached defense. And yeah, now I haven't paid attention. I didn't know they were all back, but that's a good crew to have all back.
Is there any scheme in the league that you would compare what Kevin Steele does and runs and the level of aggression that he employs to anything in the league that's similar to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a different style of blitzes, but he's an aggressive play
We have
caller.
about 5 minutes
He'll bring the
remaining with
heat on you.
Washington.
But I think
5
we have a few
minutes
defenses
remaining
in
with
our league
Washington.
that's the same thing. Everybody's got a complement of blitzes that come with you. That they just ran this, you're okay, but the fact that they run this with this is now our problem. So everybody's got their little strategy. You can't do it all. Pick and choose, and he's got a nice package that they complement well.
How big a deal is establishing the run and stopping the run for your program?
Huge. I mean, we think that's one of the number one stats that we need to pay attention to in every game. We might throw it more some games than we run it, but we still are going to go back to like starting what does running the ball look like. We just always think if you can run the ball, the game becomes so much easier. Everything else becomes easier, and if you can't, things get a little bit more complicated. We've just always felt like that. That's part of who we are.
Right. I would say that that's still largely true across college football. Not necessarily the case as much in the NFL as it used to be. Why do you think the difference exists between college football and the NFL as far as the running emphasis?
Yeah, I don't know. Those probably maybe the defensive lines and those guys that they get in the NFL, there's just no weaknesses there. They're all so big and physical that you got to, spread them out and play more of a space game. And it's, your percentages of getting 3 yards are much higher throwing it in the NFL than they would trying to smash it in there on third down. And, I haven't really studied that game as much, but that's what I would guess, that the physicality is just a little bit different.
The Pac-12 obviously produces quarterbacks at a very high level, but was it more of a running league than you maybe thought when you came into it? It seems like
Not really.
There's a lot of star running backs across this league.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of college football. I mean, some teams believe in running the ball more and some teams don't. You got the far extreme with Washington State, that's just not their deal. And they're super successful with their deal. So I think that's, I think in the NFL there's just so much similarity from team to team to team. The styles are, we're here, I think the styles vary a lot more. And I think it has to do with so many guys in college are much more willing to run their quarterbacks on normal down situations, where in NFL they'll run them, but it's going to be really specific around the goal line, maybe third downs to pull the ball, they're going to get down. Where, some of the quarterbacks in college, they're going to run counter with the quarterback, and you don't see that in the NFL. That's how we run the ball in college a little bit. The quarterbacks just become such a runner.
Can you recall a kid that you recruited who was maybe deciding between playing running back and linebacker, or running back and defensive back, and maybe decided to play defense because they thought maybe they could have a longer shelf life?
For sure. Shaq Thompson, without question. Now, when we got there, he was always a defensive player, but he was always talking about playing offense. So we're like, yeah, okay. So we played him on offense, and he did darn good. And then we got in trouble injury-wise, and so he was our starting running back for 2 games and was spectacular. And after those 2 games, he's like, Coach, when do I go back to defense? And I really think it was that. I mean, that running back thing is no joke, the pounding those guys take. That's why, like, for Myles Gaskin to play for us for 4 years and miss 2 games, it is amazing. Yeah, that's a good question. I think we have goals in terms of what we're trying to get done in our program, but I think once they're set, that's not the focus. That really shouldn't be the focus, because there's some of that we really still don't control. We might not win by enough or lose a game we shouldn't, and now all of a sudden it's in somebody else's hands, and so that's not how we want to operate. I think it's almost, it's like little kids not keeping score of a game. They still know the score. They still know what the objective is. We don't have to say we're trying to get to our kids know that. We don't have to talk about that. What do we need to talk about? It's really the process and how we play our best and how we raise our standard of excellence in all phases. That's what it's all about. I think the stuff is, I really do. I think it's cyclical. You know, I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, the Pac-12 could do no wrong, and we were in the greatest position ever, and we were going to do this and that, and then 5 years later, we don't even know how to play football anymore, you know? And that's not, it's always somewhere in between. And I know we got good players out here and good coaches and programs, and, you know, I think it's all cyclical.
All right, that'll wrap it up for Washington, and the coach and student athletes will be available for
I didn't
additional
read the whole
one-on-one
thing.
during
I
the
know
lunch
enough
hour.
about it to kind of know what they're getting at.
Did you think something like that was necessary? And then from what you saw from it, did it do enough to kind of like ease any concerns you might have had, or made you just feel better about the officiating in the conference?
I think that everybody had a lot more concerns than I did. I mean, I just know how it goes. I mean, no one's going to be perfect out there, and I know we had some issues and stuff. I think what the report does to me, and I think for probably most of the coaches, is it just makes you feel like they're doing everything in their power to get better at this whole process and to get it straightened out and do the best we possibly can. And I think that's what it's all about. And it's about owning up to, hey, what do we need to do to take the next step to make everybody feel better, including ourselves and them, you know. And so I think it's a real positive, and I think we're heading in the right direction.